What I'm thinking is on the Kelvin, it would be great to have, I think, one sort of prosthetic alien.
So don't make it look like a normal human body. Make it look
maybe
like...
maybe look like there might be something else going on. So it's like, you know, that there's, whether it's like, you know, lumps or humps or weird things that you wouldn't quite wouldn't expect.
That's kind of your design brief, whether written or just implicit, is you've got to come up with something that's quote unquote never been seen before, which is virtually impossible to do because if it's never been seen before, you're not going to know what you're looking at, so it's got to be familiar.
We got a very thin actress, let's say, to be this person. Yes. And she can be playing a male species on the ship.
JJ wanted to see what the entire character would look like. You know, wardrobe, you know, body posturing, body shape.
Morning, Cassie.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
You look like you're like dated back in '92.
The challenge is, from a budget standpoint, if you don't have the money to build elaborate costumes or do digital creatures, you're kind of stuck with a head and hands.
So it's on my arms right now, they're like here.
Just know that you're looking with your eyes. Think with your chin.
So this is down, this is up?
Yeah.
We did our best to kind of manipulate the head forms so that most of the actors who are wearing a prosthetic head, they're looking out of nostrils, they might even be looking out of the cheeks. A big part of these aliens was being on the front end of casting. So it was kind of a very different way about how we would design aliens. We'd have a concept, and then we'd find a person who had the right, not just body type, that's kind of an obvious choice, but we try and find a person who had a very specific look.
Okay. Isn't she creative?
Out of the womb.
We'll have 3 sets of aliens. We'll have A's, B's, and C's. The A's will be aliens we can get up close and personal to. One such, we have a green light on, is this character.
Copy that.
Those hands are so good. Those hands are amazing.
The B's will be sculpted masks, but they should never get too close to camera. They'll be kind of milling around in the immediate background. And then the C's are masks that we've constructed out of pre-existing prosthetics to create a whole new looking alien.
There's a lot of rubber heads. A lot of rubber heads in the distance in the background. So I think that they create kind of a texture.
Well, this is all just temporary. It's for ventilation.
The same way that you need an actor to really help you out by expressing through the prosthetic, you also need anybody who's wearing a prosthetic to be conscious that it's on their face. And we had one gentleman, he fell asleep on his face, and you know, when he woke up, it was sort of hanging off. And it was great. I went over to him, I was like, what'd you do? He's like, I can fix it, you know, and he's like shoving it up. It's like, no, you can't.
There were many iterations of aliens that JJ would come in, there's this layout, sculptures, drawings, and JJ would just go, that one, no, that one, no.
If this character were on the Enterprise in a suit, I think it'd be awesome.
Okay.
You know?
Do you see it as scarification or actual growth?
It feels to me like skin, like a pattern of the skin.
Okay.
You know?
The challenge with any alien is when you don't have eyes, you kind of lose it. It's going to look like a dummy head that just kind of moves around. The illustration that I had done for the Madeline alien, the eyes looked like they were chrome. It wasn't really my intent, but then Barney Berman said, you know, I've got chrome lenses, you should take a look at them, and he put them on the actress. I was like, oh, eureka, it's perfect.
We have 4 sons, so my eyes get drier easily.
To afford being able to put digital eyes is very expensive, so we had to be very selective about which ones would get it.
His eyes, where are
his eyes would be where his eyes are, but instead of having contact lenses and having his normal human eyes, the idea that there's this kind of silver nub that pops out, and it's kind of like, you know, so these weird little sort of silvery...
Oh, okay. Keensa, which is Scotty's sidekick. You have this darkness in the eye, and then out of these things came these little kind of metallic, weird probes. You add in these little subtle details, and it makes a tremendous difference to the believability of the thing.
You realize how unacceptable this is? Well, Deep Roy plays Keensa, who's a little, like an oyster-faced small alien. Deep, you would recognize from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, as well as numerous other films. He's probably one of the most famous actors of short stature that there is. And so I was pretty, psyched to meet him.
Let's do it. Let's go.
I remember having quite odd times on set, shooting into the night, and just sort of sat on a chair with an oyster-faced alien and Leonard Nimoy next to me. I had those moments when I was thinking, what am I doing? How did I get here?
We had to make hundreds of ears. Originally, we were making background ears out of slip latex that I think we deemed unusable even before we got to set. We came up with a lot of different types of silicones to use so we could get a seamless ear, seamless silicone ear, which has never been done before. And they worked out very well for all the Vulcans, for the elders, hundreds for the children. It was always fun when the kids come in and they're talking outside and all excited, and then they sit in your ear chair as you're, probing their ears with utensils.
I presume you've prepared new insults for today? Live long and prosper, man. Totally.
For the first few years after Star Trek went on the air, I heard a lot of ear jokes. People would often say to me, "Oh, I didn't recognize you. You don't have your ears on." That kind of stuff. So ears have been a big part of my vocabulary for a long, long time now. What we're after is what you
is the classic version
This is terrific. This is when we were at our best.
Yeah. Okay.
Was one of the very first things that Gene Roddenberry wanted to work on was Pointer Ears. He wanted this character who's going to be on the bridge a lot to signal to an audience that we're interplanetary.
There was a lot of trepidation especially in designing the ears for Spock Prime, Mr. Nimoy, because this is a character that people know. Even if you're not a Trekkie, you know this character.
But what happened on features was that we lost the direction of the point.
Mm-hmm.
It started to drift backward.
Right.
And
they really do kind of curve forward, don't they?
Yeah, and they started to go backward, and we just lost the elegance of it. We lost the flair of it.
In designing those ears, I went through like 5 or 6 different sculptures based on Mr. Nimoy's, notes. And who would know that character more than Leonard?
The ears present interesting problems. Over the years, as you can imagine, a lot of different people have made them. And there are subtle changes from one makeup artist to the next, simply because it's not a science, it's an art form.
What do you think about the ears? What's your...
Well, 2 things. They've got to come in
they're sticking out
like that,
yeah.
And they're too broad in the back.
Yeah, I was going to say.
They'll be shaved.
They hug the sides of the head, and then they point forward. I started telling the guys, it's like the difference between a Vulcan and an elf is a Vulcan's ears are towards the head.
What's up? Got some Spock ears, just hanging out. It's all good. It's all good.
Getting the ears was a defining moment for me because I feel like it informs physically so much of this character. It sets Spock apart, and understanding what it is to be alienated, and not fully integrated is an important aspect of this character.
Now, for me, it's more than just the ears. The eyebrows are just as important in a way, and even in some ways more time-consuming in the makeup department than the ears. People never realize that.
I don't think Leonard had as much to contend with as I do, so it's easier because it's less painful for me to do it, and it's sort of quicker because I have a sense of, of whether or not I have a hold of the hair.
Spock, I think we're safe to just redo to some degree because it is Nimoy in the movie, and therefore Zachary Quinto needs to look the way Nimoy looked, and the world of it needs to look. And I think that, again, the Romulans should look like Romulans, but at the same time, I'm just nervous about saying, put that makeup on Eric Bana and we're done. Is there anything we can do that's more, a little more sophisticated, but still in the family? Mm-hmm.
The Romulans were definitely our biggest challenge. We worked very closely with Neville Page on this race.
Being involved with the Romulans was the first assignment that made me very nervous, namely because I knew that the fans were expecting certain things.
We're doing a series of 4 test makeups based on some of the designs that Neville did.
this being the most elaborate.
We took Neville, and I sculpted a prosthetic for him that had this big sort of bad guy scar on the side of his face. And we cast it, molded it, and glued it on Neville, painted it up.
These pieces were sculpted by the makeup team here on top of Eric Bana's head cast. JJ had a very specific idea in mind, and we started to figure out what that was.
The Romulans and the Vulcans came from sort of the same base race. The Vulcans followed their logical tendencies, and the Romulans followed more their animalistic tendencies. We wanted to designate them that way. Neville came up with the idea of cultural hair patterning, and then piercings and scarifications, and then tattooing.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah?
Yeah, I do actually. Do you? Do you not?
You know what? Let me throw some color on it.
The choice of not having hair, and the choice of having the tattoos, and a choice of a manipulated brow. This is not all the Romulans that ever existed. This is a specific band of pretty badass Romulans. We're like Milli Vanilli, kind of.
Is that what you call this?
We follow you.
I just want to make sure that we're not. There's a cliche bad guy with scars quality.
Right.
I'm just a little nervous that we might be going too far in that direction.
Ultimately, because of budget and application time, we decided to sort of pare it down to the Romulans that you see in the film.
What are we waiting for? We wait for the one who allowed our home to be destroyed.
JJ called me and said, I'm going to send you a little sketch of how I think the Romulans are going to look, and in particular, your character. And I opened the attachment, I was like, okay, this is going to be fun. As bizarre looking as it was, I also found it to be quite beautiful.
His makeup started off at about 2.5 hours. We got it down to about 1 hour and 45 minutes, which is lightning fast.
My kids were quite shocked when they came in and saw me in full makeup. Luckily, they're experienced set kids, so they sort of were somewhat prepared, but they were pretty freaked. In fact, the person who was freaked the most, I think, was my agent. It was the first time I'd seen him speechless. Now I feel normal.
There you go.
I'm here for colors ahead, JJ.
Cool. Oh, so much better. I think this is just it's such a clearer story than the ear is awesome.
I just thought it was a really incredible look, and also exciting to be kind of unrecognisable as well. There's definitely a liberation that you know, as an actor, that comes with that. It's one thing to continually try and find characters that are nothing like you, but it's very rare that you can legitimately come up with a physical look, you know, in a real sense that's nothing like you.
Roll cameras, please.
The big differences between masks and prosthetic makeups are that a mask you can take off at the end of the day and put it on the following day. A prosthetic you have to remove, and it's trashed, which is kind of tragic in this case because you couldn't save those eyebrows. They were punched in one hair at a time. A set of eyebrows took about 4 hours per prosthetic, per Romulan, per day.
Finish.
The biggest featured alien we call Big Red, which is this huge red creature that turns up on, which is a lot of fun, on Delta Vega, the ice planet.
That sequence was very much inspired by the original series. You know, it was always about you're down on a planet and there's a rock monster. And obviously effects have come to a totally different place now. And so what's the spirit of that idea, which is you're marooned on a planet and you've got a twig to fend off a monster?
That's everything that we wanted the movie to be. It's action, it's adventure, it's character, all told on an amazingly grand scale.
In the original script, it was on a desert planet. So the description was kind of a hybrid of a turtle, dragon, thingamajig, and then the script changed to it's on an ice planet. There was a few requirements that JJ wanted. It had to be able to grab Kirk and start pulling it towards its mouth. He wanted the most vulgar, horrible orifice. He just wanted something that you wouldn't be afraid of being bitten by it. you'd be afraid of like touching it. That would be more horrific than being eaten by it.
It would gross us out all the time in dailies, and it was just foul looking at it, but it really works.
JJ wanted this thing to have hundreds of eyes all over it, and I thought, boy, I don't know if that makes sense. And it's not supposed to. That's kind of the point.
He's got 250 eyes, something that we had to think about. We wanted to see those eyes, and we actually did blinks to actually make them really scary.
It was a case of, for me, just making it feel biologically sound, like it could actually support its own weight, that it doesn't really belong on the surface. It's mostly an underwater. It's kind of like a walrus.
He lives actually underneath the ice, and so when he's out on the ice, we didn't want to make him feel too at home. Big Red is a little bit more clumsy on the ice, so we didn't want to make it comical. Big Red slipping around and falling around, but we still wanted to make him threatening, but also we wanted to see that he was sort of out of his element. So Kirk actually feels like he has a chance that he could actually get away.
My goal has always been, how can I do something that's entertaining, that we haven't seen before?
Yeah, I love this. This is awesome. The hands are crazy good, too.
Working for JJ was fantastic, especially in the respects that it allowed a lot of creative freedom.
And 3.
Spock lives.